Welcome back, everybody. Well, have you ever been working on a project and you need to join two boards side by side, but yet they're crooked? You need a straight edge and you don't have a joiner. You don't want to go spend $500,000, whatever a joiner may cost. Today I'm gonna build a little jig and we're gonna see if we can turn a table saw into a joiner. All right, here's an example of what you'll run into. I've got some poplar. It was just rough sawn lumber. I've run it through a planer, but I did not run it through a joiner. So I'm hitting on the ends. I put my little reference mark here so we'll see how they marry up when we get done, but we're hitting on that end, hitting on this end, and then we got a big, probably half-inch gap here in the middle. Let's see if this jig will help us. All right, that's my first run. I'm gonna make a little modification. All right, that'll give me a little rest from the material out here, so let's try it again. All right, so here's our results. After running it through a little jig here, I'm gonna throw 3 clamps on it and we'll see if we could get that to glue up and look like something. Well, I don't know if it would pass muster with these fine furniture makers, but this one board's a little thicker, so I've got just a little shadow line, but I believe I could put a little glue on that, put me a couple more clamps on it, and I believe I could live with it. Well, the short and sweet of it is essentially I just formed me a box here that was the same width as my fence on my rip saw. That way it would set down over it. And then I have a metal bracket here and one on the other side, so that's where I located these set screws. That way I can tighten this in against those brackets, and then it pulls that pulls my box up against my fence. That way everything stays nice and tight. If you've ever used a joiner, you know the front table will actually move up and down, so that's where you get the depth of your cut. Now in this case, I had to set the depth of my cut an 1/8 inch, which is the thickness of that blade. So when I centered it up on my blade, I just lined the outside edge up with the edge of my blade, then I plunged up into it. So I had a flat piece here, and then I just pushed it all the way through. So I cut that 1/8 inch away from this material. So when my material, if this is your hump, it comes in, it'll cut an 1/8 inch off, and then it will come out here. Once it's cut off, it'll ride on your fence back here, and you can continually cut it until it takes the hump out, and you got a straight board when it's all said and done. Last thing I did is I actually moved my fence over, and I took just a little bit more material out here where my blade was, so that way it wasn't sitting here running against this material the whole time, so that way it had a little bit of clearance on the back side. But other than that, piece of OSB board, and you got yourself a joiner. Well, obviously this is not going to replace a joiner. If you've ever used a joiner, you know they're a handy tool and they have a specific purpose and they do it really, really well. But I've got a joiner. It's out at my dad's property. We're living up here in this pole barn, and it's just an open shed out here where I'd have to set it up, and I'm not going to put it out here in the elements. But I will tell you, if you're just starting into woodworking and you want the ability to put a straight edge on a board, this little table saw version works really well, and I will tell you, it's a tremendous amount cheaper than going and buying one. I will say one benefit to this though is the table size. I think on the joiner I have, it's a 72-inch table, and you know, when you're trying to straighten longer stuff, it kind of becomes a challenge because you got so much hanging out over the end. But with this, that scrap OSB was 8 foot, so I was able to pick up an 8-foot table, and so, you know, straightening longer stuff, it works pretty good. But hey, if you're a weekend warrior or a beginning woodworker and you want the ability to straighten a board, take 30 minutes, put you one of these together, and I think you'll be pleased with it. Obviously, I just threw it together with brad nails. This was just a test run to see how it would work, but I could go back and tweak it some and make it better. But for what I was using it for, it worked pretty good. Well, that's going to wrap this one up. If you got any questions about this, stick them down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. But if you watch this one, I appreciate it. And until the next time, we'll see you later.